I've got a pretty important story here that I found out of Defense News, and it's definitely something we want to all pay attention to. China demonstrated satellite dogfighting, Space Force General says. Satellite dogfighting. This is something that we are going to start hearing a lot more of going into the future. A top Space Force general said Tuesday that commercial systems have observed Chinese satellites rehearsing dogfighting maneuvers in low Earth orbit, the U.S. adversary's latest show of tactical and technological advancement in space capabilities. With our commercial assets, we have observed 5 different objects in space maneuvering in and out and around each other in synchronicity and in control. Vice Chief of Space Operations General Michael Gutlein said during McLee's Defense Programs Conference in Washington. That's what we call dogfighting in space. They're practicing tactics, techniques, and procedures to do on-orbit space operations from one satellite to another. That's very interesting. So they're practicing how to maneuver satellites in space the same way you would aircraft in the air to obviously take out an adversary's satellite capabilities. And this is clearly of deep interest to Space Force. A service spokesman later elaborated on Gutlein's comments, saying the operation occurred in 2024 and involved 3 Xi'an 24th C experimental satellites and 2 other Chinese experimental satellites, Shijian 605A and B. The Shijian 6 systems are believed to have a signals intelligence mission. The exercise showcased the country's ability to perform complex maneuvers in orbit, referred to as rendezvous and proximity operations, which involve not only navigating around objects but also inspecting them. That is a very curious thing as well. So now we know that they are able to pull up probably to one of our keyhole satellites or whatever satellites we've got up there and inspect them very close up if we're not watching them. Gutlein listed the satellite dogfighting demonstration alongside other concerning activities from near-peer U.S. adversaries. That includes Russia's 2019 demonstration of a nesting doll capability where one satellite released a smaller spacecraft that performed several stalking maneuvers near a U.S. satellite. So you have satellites up there capable of launching their own vehicles, and those vehicles are able to stalk, probably inspect, and in time of war probably ram and damage or destroy whatever satellite they're looking at. These behaviors indicate the space capability gap between the U.S. military and its closest enemies is shrinking, a concern Space Force leaders has been raising for years. That capability gap used to be massive, Gutlein said. We've got to change the way we look at our space, and our capabilities gap may reverse and not be in our favor anymore. Gutlein's comments came as Space Force ramps up its emphasis on establishing superiority or dominance in space, both by defining its satellites from enemy attacks, defending its satellites from enemy attacks, and through offensive measures of its own. The purpose of Space Force is to guarantee space superiority for the joint force, not space for space's sake. Space operations guarantee that, like all other domains, we can fight as a joint force, and we can depend on those capabilities. One of the things I did take from his statement, and I found this kind of funny. We're going to go right back to it here. With our commercial assets, we have observed 5 different objects in space maneuvering in and out and around each other in synchronicity and control. With our commercial assets. So, Starlink? What are you talking about? I think I know what we're talking about here. And we're not talking about a commercial asset. We're probably talking about the X-37B, which just recently returned to Earth. 12 days ago, this was from the War Zone, posted March 7th. After 434 days, clearly over the time frame that he just spoke about in this article, because he said this took place in 2024. Well, in 2024, given that this landed 434 days after a 434-day mission, I have a feeling that the commercial asset was this asset. We don't even really know what this thing is capable of. This is the most open secret the U.S. Air Force probably, U.S. Space Force probably has. And I do mean open secret. Everybody knows this thing exists. Everybody knows what it is. Everyone knows how it's launched. People are able to find it with their home telescopes. We know the orbit that it takes most of the time. We don't know what it does all the time. Oh, hey, look. You're in that picture. Well, someone's in that picture. And that is one high orbit. A geo orbit, or further. They talk about it in this article, and I'll be sure to link this article to it. But it looks like the Chinese are learning how to do satellite dogfighting. I have a feeling that's something the United States has probably already done. I don't know that for sure. I'm merely speculating. But I think that's safe speculation. I also think it's safe speculation to say that it was the X-37 that probably observed these maneuvers itself. Not some commercial asset. I wouldn't be surprised if there's HD, high-quality video. No less the radar images and everything else that this thing probably has. But I bet you that exists. I'll bet that exists. Commercial asset. Uh-huh. Now with that beauty flying in the sky. Now with that beauty flying in the sky. And that high up in orbit. That high up in orbit. That is not low Earth orbit. Because as you remember from this article, these took place in low Earth orbit. Where is it in here? In low Earth orbit. So they were watched by this, and thank God for it. I'm glad it was there to watch them. Always feels like somebody's watching me. And you're damn right we are. You're damn right we are. General, my compliments, sir, and I appreciate you making this public. I appreciate you making this public. Something as a public we need to be well aware of, because so many of our civilian systems rely on these satellites as well. A lot of these are dual use, and some of these are just commercial systems used by the military. So they would not just go after military satellites. They would go after any that they deemed necessary for accomplishment of their goal, which could include any of them. So, China demonstrates the ability to satellite dogfight, Space Force says. In the article, we learned that the Russians in 2019 demonstrated nesting capability where it launched its own individual little spacecraft to go inspect satellites. We need to pay attention to space. There's no doubt about it. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit the like. Share it with a friend. Subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time.